I initially started putting a video together featuring some of my favorite side quests from Ghostwire Tokyo, as these are easily the best part of the game if you're a Japanese horror fan. But as I started looking around the infamous Kisaragi Station quest, I realized just how many Easter eggs were hidden there. Some of them so obscure that many Japanese players didn't even understand them when they first saw them. So, this week, we're going to dive right in and fully explore Ghostwire Tokyo's Kisaragi Station, the best side quest in the game, and all the neat things they hid there. There were definitely some big occult fans in the Ghostwire development team, and they got to let loose here. First, to find this side quest, called A Stop in the Void in English and The Nameless Station in Japanese, take the northern subway entrance near Morite Shrine, and you'll find a spirit called the Rumor-Spreading Man. I'm starting to think the rumors about the subway might be true. Supposedly, if you're the only passenger on the subway, it'll bring you to a stop that shouldn't exist. For most players, this no doubt immediately brought to mind images of the infamous station that shouldn't exist that was first spoken of on Ni Channel in 2004. In this story, a woman by the name of Hasumi got on the train at Shin Hamamatsu Station in Shizuoka to go home after work, but soon noticed that it wasn't stopping. The story took place in real time as she detailed the train finally stopping at a strange place called Kisaragi, a station that didn't seem to exist. After much back and forth with numerous Ni channelers trying to help her, Hasumi eventually got in a cab, but something seemed a little off with her driver. She mentioned that she would jump out first chance she got, but that her battery was dying and this was the last anyone ever heard of her. If you're here on this channel, you no doubt know this story, but I'll leave a link in the comments if you want to refresh your memory or if you've actually never heard it before and this is your first time. So, according to this gossip-monging spirit, if you're the only person on the subway, it'll take you to a stop that shouldn't exist. He apparently lost his friend at this stop after getting off the train and leaving him alone, so it's up to us to check it out. Kill several visitors on the way, and now we're all alone on the subway. Everything corrupts and an empty train arrives. After a creepy ride there, we find ourselves at the infamous Stop in the Void. It's an old-fashioned station that clearly hasn't seen use in a long time. The signs are all faded, but look closely enough and you can just about make out the name. Kisaragi. Nice. Now, sadly, unless you speak Japanese and have knowledge of numerous suicide spots, the signs here won't have a lot of meaning. The first one you come across says, "Wait a moment. Have you deleted your hard disk?" While this might sound odd at first, it's a real sign from the Sandanbeki Cliffs, a popular tourist location but also suicide spot in Wakayama. And while it might seem crude, this joking plea reportedly halved suicides in the area, so it seems that the humour worked on some. And, in turn, that made the sign rather well known around the country as well. Next is a sign that says, "Recognize the importance of life." This is another real sign that you can find at various stations around Okutama and Ome in Tokyo. These are stations that have seen numerous people throw themselves onto the tracks over the years, so the signs were a way to try to stop that, or at the very least, bring more awareness to the problem. There's also a small "Don't throw your life away" sign on the pole between these two, which also comes from a real sign from Yase Cliff in Ishikawa. This is another popular suicide spot that has all sorts of ghost stories surrounding it, but there's also some debate over whether this is an actual suicide spot and not, perhaps, an accident spot. The drop from the cliffs is 55 meters, and below you'll find more jagged rocks. The drop is very sudden and sheer, and you have to climb a railing to get close to the edge to see over. It has been debated over the years that perhaps some, if not most of the deaths that have occurred here were simply accidents by people trying to look over the edge. After all, you need to be incredibly brave to get that far, even more so knowing that an incredibly painful death waits below. Either way, this spot is rather well known, so this sign's inclusion was a no-brainer. After that, there's an odd note on a chair called Send Apple that details someone looking for cosmic brothers to help solve a code and repeats Send Apple over and over again, finally ending with Send Apple, C. If you had no idea what this note meant, you're not alone, and it's a rather obscure reference to a real event that happened in Japan in the early 1960s. I watched numerous Japanese players go through this mission, and even they didn't understand the reference. To make a very long and complicated story short, an aviation journalist by the name of Matsumura Yusuke formed the Cosmic Brotherhood Association, or CBA for short, in 1957 to study UFOs. Yet, this association quickly turned into a cult that believed the world was going to soon tilt on its axis, causing massive climate change and disaster that would wipe humanity out. Only those who believed their warnings would then be saved by aliens, because according to Matsumura, he had made contact with them. And in the early 1960s, when the CBA feared that the time was near, they sent out secret coded messages to members and their families. These messages said simply, Send Apple, C. The C stood for the English word catastrophe, and Send Apple was merely a code indicating that the time had come. The world was about to end, so members had to pack their things and get ready for the UFOs to come pick them up. What made this even more bizarre was the number of high-level people involved in the cult, and numerous corporate executives around the country started selling off everything they owned. After all, they wouldn't need it with Earth no longer around. This all took place quietly until the lid was blown open by Hirano Imao, a poet and scholar of French literature. He also dabbled in UFO research, and this was how he discovered what was really going on. Hirano then leaked this to the media, and it came to be known as the Send Apple, C incident. It became a massive scandal that forced Matsumura to resign from the organization, although he was eventually reinstated after several other people took the job and then resigned themselves. Other groups that were interested in studying UFOs also feared that the general public would see them as crazy as well by association, and so they leveled harsh criticisms the CBA's way. After this, the CBA became even more cult-like, and, of course, no aliens ever came to pick their members up. They then turned their ideals in another direction and placed the ancient alien theory as the heart of their ideals instead. The cult pretty much disappeared when Matsumura fell ill in the late 60s, however, and he withdrew from the public eye. This whole incident and the organization behind it is fascinating, so if you'd like a separate video on them and what went on, let me know in the comments below. Another interesting thing about this note is the differences in the English and Japanese. They are mostly the same except for one part. In English it states, "Where are our cosmic brothers? I need you to solve this code. Help me." Obviously, knowing what we know now, the cosmic brothers refers to either the aliens that were supposed to pick the members up, or simply the Cosmic Brotherhood Association itself. And the code was Send Apple, a sign that it was time to leave the planet. But the Japanese note says, "It should have arrived. Please solve this code. Help me." No mention of cosmic brothers at all, which suggests that the translators were at least given background on what this particular note meant, and they were able to add an extra bit in the English for a little more clarity. Of course, not that it matters unless you know what the heck the Send Apple incident was anyway. But now you do. And it seems that the members weren't picked up by aliens, but rather sent to Kisaragi instead. "You are not alone," says another sign next to the Send Apple note. This is a sign you can commonly find at various suicide spots around the country, and next to that is the station name itself. Look closely enough and you can just barely make out Kisaragi in not just Japanese but English as well. They even included Yami and Higan as the before and after stations. These were later additions to the legend that have since stuck around and add another neat touch of authenticity. There's also another sign just outside the platform that says, "Your life is a precious gift from your parents. Please have a good think about things one more time. Don't struggle alone. Ask for help." This is another sign you can find at Japan's Sea of Trees, which shouldn't need any introduction here. Then there's one more note on the stairs from someone who says he got off at the wrong station. He's been waiting for over 2 hours now for the train to return, and he thinks it's time to call a cab instead. This, of course, comes straight from the Kisaragi Station story itself, as Hasumi also gets off at the wrong train station, waits for another train to arrive, then eventually starts walking and decides to take a cab instead. There are also a few posters covering the ticket office that are scribbled with characters for death and murder, and one in particular that says, "Ore Ore Sagi." This is a reference to a popular scam that involves someone calling up a person's elderly parents or grandparents and pretending to be them by saying, "Ore da," or "it's me." By pretending to be a son or grandson in trouble, they then get the person on the other end of the phone to transfer a large amount of money to a bank account that they will never see again. The scam became such a problem in the late 1990s and early 2000s that numerous campaigns were made to alert elderly people to the dangers of it, and remind them to always confirm who they were actually talking to first, and never transfer money to an unknown bank account. Anyway, after defeating a bunch of tough enemies, you'll find that nobody can leave because a certain monster is keeping them all here. Of course, that monster is a Crimson Kuchisake, and for most players, this should be their first encounter with her in the game. The sight of her suddenly appearing on the platform of Kisaragi Station, of all places, is certainly not something I'll forget anytime soon. And then, after you defeat her, you're sent back to the subway in Tokyo, and everyone who was stuck there is now free. Side quest completed. This is undoubtedly my favourite side quest, not just because it took us to Kisaragi, which alone makes it awesome, but the pure amount of Easter eggs and obscure references they managed to pack on a single platform, all hinting that Kisaragi is a place where people are spirited away to, a place where monsters lurk, a place where those who take their own lives are likely to end up stuck in a purgatory-like state, trapped by said monsters who won't let them move on. But what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. Send Apple. See.